Aloha, it's Dave Lawrence. How are you? Big mahalo for tuning in this afternoon. I'm grateful to have you on board. Hope you're having a good day. Today we're welcoming an artist for the first time to the show. He and his band from Washington State headed to Honolulu for a pair of dates at Honolulu's newest club, the Republic, on Kapiolani Boulevard, August 22nd and 23rd. Their latest album, a remix, Keys and Codes, a remix of Codes and Keys, both released last year. They've done 7 studio albums known for their experimentation with unconventional sounds and instruments. Got a style it's really hard to put a finger on, but it's music that makes you think, which I always dig. It's a pleasure to welcome vocalist, guitarist, pianist, songwriter Ben Gibbard of Death Cab for Cutie. Aloha and mahalo, Ben. Thanks for taking a few minutes for me. I appreciate it.
Of course, anytime.
What's your personal history with Hawaii? I don't see any previous Death Cab for Cutie gigs out here, but I could be wrong.
Well, this will be the first time we've ever been to Hawaii. I mean, we've never actually been there before as a band. I think we've all been there as individuals for, vacation and whatnot. But yeah, never as a band. So we're pretty excited. Traveling
seems like something that there's a great line in "You Are a Tourist," which sort of it lends itself to experiences, places, cities. And I've dug this line. It says something like, "If you feel just like a tourist in the city you were born, then it's time to go and define your destination. There's so many different places to call home." So it made me always think of like you have a real flexible view of what could be your community you want to live in.
Well, yeah, I think that there is the home that you grew up in, the place that you kind of, that was the home that was kind of chosen for you. And then, the definition of home is always changing, always kind of morphing depending on the people you have in your life or wherever you kind of found yourself connected to for whatever reason. For some time I was living in Los Angeles, but now being back in Seattle, my definition of home feels much more kind of like, place I was always meant to be, Totally. It's always been home and it always will be, so.
And I get more from that, too. There's also something else that I picked up in that in another part of the song. This fire grows higher when there's a burning in your heart. And, like, from that, I took passion is key to bringing animation to your life. Like, you've got to have...
Absolutely, yeah.
Like, you've got to have passion in your life to bring the novelty. And that was what I just, like, picked up from the direction of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very astute kind of take on the lyric. I mean, it's a very simple kind of lyric, and I kind of wanted it to be more of a hook than a really kind of wordy, kind of overtly meaningful kind of line. But yeah, I mean, that is very much the core of the lyric, which is just that one has to kind of feel this kind of passion within themselves to kind of take everything they can out of life,
And you meet a lot of folks who've sort of either lost that passion or don't have it, whatever it is. I mean, and I think that there is really something to be said for that, because people, whatever their job is, whether it's being on the radio, whether it's being in a band, if they're a songwriter, whatever they, architect, if they just are driven by it, there's a different vibration, I guess you could say, than folks who do not have that.
Well, absolutely. And that kind of fire, also can kind of recede and grow with time. I mean, there are times in life when that fire is really, is massive, and there's times where it's just kind of flickering and barely staying alive. But, I think, the very core of life is that fire is always burning. It's just a matter of, at what height and what kind of intensity, in a particular moment or a particular time.
Yeah, dude, definitely. Life has its valleys, peaks and valleys, phases. No question. No doubt. And it was interesting what you said about, you lived to LA, you went to LA area, but you're back. And the same sort of, with that kind of feeling of you needed to relocate there or whatever, through traveling, are there any observations, because the band has taken you around the world, really? Have you really picked up any observations about the area you're from, things you've discovered about yourself, or maybe the music that were influenced by growing up there in the Pacific Northwest?
Well, I think that growing up in the Northwest certainly has had an effect on me as a person. But I think as I've traveled around the world, what I've taken from the experiences are that people are basically the same everywhere, and every city that we go to has variations on the same thing. really it comes down to, and every place one might go has the time, the seasons of good weather and bad weather. I mean, maybe not so much, Hawaii or San Diego or something, but certainly really it really comes down to the quality of life is really, in my opinion, the quality of life is really determined by the people that you surround yourself with, and that anywhere I could call anywhere home as long as I felt I was surrounded by people and that I really cared about.
Are there other places you've wanted to live or contemplated? Like, I'll give you an example. When I visited Seattle for my first time, I sort of fell in love with it. I started sizing it up like, I wonder if I could live here. That's what I thought when I visited Vancouver. So when you go places, are there ever times you think to yourself, man, I would like to maybe experience this beyond just a visit. Maybe I'd want to stay here for a while.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I have fantasies about moving to Pittsburgh all the time.
Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I completely fallen in love with the city of Pittsburgh, and I think it's just a really wonderful, really, really amazing city with just beautiful architecture and, real kind of, blue collar kind of working class kind of backbone. And also really kind of vibrant arts community. And I don't know, for whatever reason, I've always really liked Pittsburgh. So I think that as I kind of think about, relocating if I ever were to do so, which is not something that's obviously in my plans, currently. I often think of Pittsburgh and have dreams of Pittsburgh.
That's cool. They have some neat architecture there. I always dug that PP&G building, looks like a glass castle sort of building that they've got. Is there?
Yeah, I mean, all the bridges up and down the Allegheny are really beautiful, and I just think it's a really wonderful city. I've always really enjoyed going.
Yeah, the Three Rivers, no doubt, brother. When you think about what was it that drove you back then to the Seattle area?
I just kind of decided that I kind of needed to be back in kind of my home city, and that staying in Los Angeles is not something I really wanted to do. So I decided to kind of come back to Seattle, and it's welcomed me back with open arms, thankfully.
Well, I think of it more like in terms of what is the effect of the band. It seems so many artists end up relocating to Los Angeles as part of the equation for making it, and then in some cases they relocate to other places. They retreat, if you will, from LA just because it starts to have maybe a negative effect on the band. And I guess I was just wondering if you felt like going there was the right thing to do at one point, and then you realize, well, perhaps this isn't the best thing for the band's sound or holding it together.
I don't have any kind of ill feelings about the city. I think, there's a lot of really amazing people doing incredibly creative, interesting things there. And, quite an inspiring place to kind of to be at times. But, it's just not home. And Seattle has, always provided that sense of warmth and kind of, and like as I said earlier, always kind of greeted me with open arms,
When you think about producing the records with that sort of mentality, your guitarist Chris produces you guys in the studio. Talk about how a decision is made like that for a person to have that kind of direction, and what it is about Chris that makes him a good candidate for the job.
Well, outside of the fact that he's, wildly talented at producing records, he's been able to, tread very kind of tumultuous waters of being both the producer and a member of the band. And, I think that over the course of our kind of career as a band, we certainly had some growing pains around that kind of relationship. But, really it's, 99.99% of the time it's always worked to our benefit. And we really enjoy having him at the helm, So, and he's also one of those people who just never is at a loss for an idea, And I think he possesses a trait that all good and great producers have, which is that, when something is heading down the wrong road, he's able to kind of steer it back into the proper direction by just kind of throwing out an idea or saying, let's take a break, or, he's very good at kind of judging the temperature of a studio and kind of knowing when it's time to kind of push people and when it's time to give them a break. And so, he's I think it's what makes him so great at his job.
And you're right, you identified it. It's got to be kind of difficult to do both of those roles, huh? Be in the band and then sort of have that. Because in a lot of cases of the great records, you look at the producer as being this outside force of creativity that is kind of like a lion tamer, but also sort of like a maestro in so many ways.
Sure, and I think that, time will tell as to whether or not we ever work with another producer, but I do think that, that relationship and the romance of that kind of the band being wrangled by a producer and then, kind of, like as you put it, as a lion tamer, I think is appropriate for certain bands. But, for us, we've always been a fairly self-motivated kind of band. And similar to Chris, we've never really had a shortage of ideas when it comes to, working on records. So, we're kind of, I think that the relationship fits us as well, as much because of the fact that we also are quite motivated. We're not necessarily the kind of band that needs to be that kind of stares around, looking at each other trying to figure out what to do. I think more times than not, we're kind of fighting over whose idea we're going to kind of go with.
Yeah, I dig what you're saying. There's different scenarios where sometimes the band requires more of the animal wrangler producer as opposed to someone who is almost arranging different ideas or adding different elements to songs. When you think about that outside creative force, you guys also have videos that are creative in a way that's gotten attention and makes people think, kind of like your songs. Underneath the Sycamore, particularly, very wild animated quality to it. What inspired the video, and how do you get involved creatively with the making of Death Cab for Cutie videos?
Well, in that particular case, we basically, turned the song over to the animators who also did the video for Grapevine Fires, and they kind of constructed a narrative for the video that they felt would kind of be appropriate. And I think that I feel the videos that have turned out the best for our band have always been the ones where we've kind of hired somebody to do a video, we've just kind of trusted that they know what they're doing, and really let them express themselves and kind of do their job to the best of their ability. I mean, I consider myself a connoisseur of film, and I know a thing or two about music videos, but I don't make them, and I've never made a video myself. So I feel that when you bring somebody in who's made a number of really great videos, and that's why you're hiring them, your kind of energy is best spent letting that person do what they're kind of best at, rather than trying to kind of micromanage it because you are the kind of creator of the song that the video is being made to. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I feel it's best to kind of let creative people do what they're best at, and if the relationship doesn't seem to be working, you can always kind of find somebody else to do it. But I think that we've never wanted to micromanage these kind of things. We've always wanted to kind of let them just kind of happen and trust the people that we've hired.
On that note of not of putting certain things in other people's hands, like you're describing with the video, partnership really with someone who's more adept at maybe handling the direction of something like a video, as opposed to the production, which a lot of bands outsource, but you guys have decided to do yourselves. When it comes to like the recording of Codes and Keys, I read that there were 8 studios used to record it, and it was it sounds like a unique process. Why was that done in that way?
Well, I think we learned from experience that when we hole up in one studio for a month or two trying to make a record, it takes on a very kind of work-a-day feel, and I think some of the inspiration kind of starts to slip out the window around week 2 or so. And I also feel that there is some kind of cosmic truth to this notion that that certain songs kind of you can breathe new life in them if you take them elsewhere and you record them in another setting. And for example, we attempted to record the song "Stay Young Go Dancing" in Los Angeles at a studio called Sound City, and it's a great studio, but it's the kind of place that there's no windows and it's very kind of dark and kind of 70s recording studio-ish, in all the great ways, but certainly also, didn't see, we, for whatever reason, we just couldn't capture the song there. And when we took the song up to Vancouver, Canada, and started kind of recording it in a studio that was on the second floor in Gastown in downtown Vancouver, and there were, these floor-to-ceiling windows, and there was light coming in. It just seemed that the song wanted to live there, and it wanted to be birthed, in that. And we recorded it rather quickly, in that studio, in a way that was so effortless that it seemed silly that we couldn't have recorded it at Sound City. So, I think that, over time we've just learned, we're in a fortunate position that we can kind of move. We're not going into a studio with a week to make a record. We can kind of take our time, and we can go to different places and make an experience of it, and good ideas tend to kind of flow out of those, those moves.
Keeping it fresh, no doubt, and that's a great way of looking at it. It's almost like tours that go on too long. A band starts to kind of burn out towards the end of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's very difficult to kind of keep a set list fresh, even with 7 records, when you've been touring for 14 months, but I think for us, what always kind of invigorates me in those situations, even at month 14, is that a lot of people are seeing us play for the first time, or they haven't seen us on this particular record, and they've had some time to sit with it, and they are yelling for certain songs they want to hear, and that energy certainly kind of double backs on us, and we're able to feed off of it. So even at the end of a very long tour cycle, we still feel kind of invigorated when there's a crowd that's really excited.
Yeah, we just had the Stylistics on, Philly Soul Band, and the guy said almost the same thing about how fans don't realize the impact they have, that when like a song starts and they start roaring their approval, their recognition of just the first riff or the first couple notes they hear, the impact that has on the guys on the stage, the juice it provides, if you will.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's very real. And, there have been some nights where, we've been on tour for what is a very long time, and you just kind of feel a little bit like, oh man, I don't know where I'm going to be able to pull it from tonight. I'm just really exhausted, or you're sick, or you need some help. That it's not just it's going to be more difficult to pull it out of yourself. But then you have a moment, like that, like you're describing, and then it all just kind of locks in, and you just feel as if you can do no wrong, sort of.
Yeah, they provide that inspiration, that critical motivation, if you will. And as I wrap it up with you, on the note of coming here for these shows, Ben, is there anything in particular you're going to be doing, or anything of note on these shows that you want to share with folks that we didn't cover?
No, I mean, we make sure that, when we play shows, we're, playing material from our entire catalog. Now that, we have over, 7 records and EPs and all that kind of stuff. So, people can expect a pretty wide kind of selection of songs from our catalog at these shows.
You excited to conquer new territory every time you go to a market you've never played?
I am. It's crazy that we've been a band for almost 15 years and we've never been to Hawaii, or we've never been to Alaska, or we've never been to Maine. We've never played in New Mexico. So I think that with every record that we make, we try to kind of check some places off, and we could be a band for 50 years and never get everywhere, but it's certainly exciting to be playing in a place where there's it's pretty certain that nobody has seen you play before, or if they have, they had to be on the mainland.
Right. No, that's hot. What's the most exotic, or the place that you've walked out on stage and thought to yourself, man, this feels so good, I can't believe we're playing, and fill in the blank? I
mean, honestly, the most thrilling show we've had in years was in Manila, in the Philippines, in the spring. The crowd was unbelievable. I mean, in a way that it was, if our band could ever, justify a 1,000th of a percent of like a Beatlemania kind of excitement, it was in Manila. I mean, that was really a pretty wild show, and the crowd was just insane. So we really, that was a pretty exciting one, and we were all almost kind of upset that we'd never been there before because the show was so good.
That's hot. I hope that when you come here, you get just as much a response. And certainly on that note, 2 nights says something. Adding a second night is not exactly a common thing out here. I really do appreciate it. I hope you keep in mind, maybe getting in touch with us when you're in town.
Sure, it was nice talking to you, and we're excited to get to the Honolulu. I appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Ben.
Bye.
Take care.